collect carts, and there couldn't be more than 5 carts out in the parking lot at any time, and you're still boxing groceries. So I didn't have any money. I didn't have a lot of money, and we didn't have a trash compactor at Stater Brothers. We had these big bags that we throw boxes in when you jump up and down on them, and then you tie up the bags, and then they take them away for recycling. And so I was jumping up and down on a bag, and I ripped my shoes. And we had to wear polished shoes. Like at Stater Brothers, you wear a white shirt, a tie, and polished shoes.
Yeah.
And they were strict on that. So I was jumping up and down on the bag, and I ripped my shoes. So I didn't have any money. You know, as a kid, didn't have any money. At that time, didn't have enough. And so I taped the shoe up with duct tape. And I don't know if people know that Ron and Joe Burkle were executives at Stater Brothers at the time I was working there. Actually, they were DMs at the time when I first started working there. And they came through, and they actually were my district manager. And I'm running through the parking lot, and Ron stops me, and he says, well, what's going on with your shoe? And I said, I ripped it. He goes, when you get a new pair of shoes? And I said, well, payday. And he says, if you don't get a new pair of shoes tonight, don't come back to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I scrounged up a bunch of money and quickly got a new pair of shoes.
I still wish that story ended with him giving you $20 to go buy some shoes.
You know, at the time, who knew? Like, who knew how what an important business figure he would become?
Yeah, for the audience, will you explain where he's at and, what he had become?
Well, Ron left Stater Brothers. I mean, Stater Brothers was owned by Petrolane, a big oil company, when I was working there, and then they were bought by Piggly Wiggly, I think. And Ron and those guys had moved up, and they were executives there. And with all the changes, they decided they were going to go and open up their own store, which was Food for Less.
Yeah.
And so a bunch of guys left Stater Brothers and opened Food for Less, and Food for Less became successful. And Ron parlayed that into a bunch of other investments, including Barnes and Nobles and other things. And I think he's one of the most successful businessmen coming out of California.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
Or the U.S., right?
Guy telling you to get your shoes fixed.
Well, it's a good lesson. I mean, it was. I mean, it's those things that are important.
Yeah. You briefly mentioned the union, and I think it's an interesting part of your life in terms of your success or your clashes with the union, and it really goes back to working hard. Can you talk a little bit about what some of those clashes were as it related to working hard and the conflict that created with the union?
Yeah, I mean, it's, for me, it was pretty black and white. You came in, you worked really hard, you got your paycheck. I mean, to me, there wasn't a question of just slacking off, and that's kind of what how our parents raised us. You know, it's you work hard and you get paid for a good day's work. There was no slacking off at home. That we mowed the lawn, we did everything. We didn't get allowance. I mean, there was no allowance. That was just part of
the deal.
Part of the deal.
You live here.
Yeah, you live here, and this is how you pay for it. But I would come in, and there'd be a lot of stuff to do, and like I said, we ran a really small payroll. So at Stater Brothers. So we had to come in. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done before the end of the night. And so what we did was I came in early, and I started pulling the pop table and the beer table and the things that you had to load up before the next day. Mm-hmm. And I did that before I clocked in. And the union they frowned on people working off the clock.
Yeah.
Because that was hours that someone else could be working, I guess.
Sure.
But no one else would have done it, and then the store wouldn't have looked good. We couldn't have taken care of the store. So it was something that I continued to do, and I fostered that. I as a manager, I said, look, come in early, pull it, and then at 10 o'clock, if we can leave early, we'll go get some pizza or whatever, but, we won't have to stay late.
Yeah.
And the store will look good for the opening manager. And a lot of guys understood that. They understood they had pride in the store. They wanted the store to look good, but at the same time, we had some guys that, were union guys for a long time, and, they'd come in and they just walk around and not do anything and take their time because there's nothing you could do.
Yeah.
And at that time, we were making $25 an hour.
Wow. A lot of money.
A lot of money. But we were doing a lot more than just pushing things through a scanner like they do now.
Yeah, of course.
We were actually weighing on manual scales, and we had to memorize the actual produce. We didn't have to memorize the code number. And I mean, those were the days when I first started where everything was stamped on a can.
Yeah.
or labeled, and there were quick tabs that we put on the shelves. I mean, that seems like a long time ago. It wasn't that long, but that's what we were doing. And if someone didn't pull their weight, it just didn't work. You know, I mean, in business, if someone doesn't do what they're supposed to do, something happens. And that was the same with the grocery store. And so I was sent, you know, as from Stater Brothers, they would send me out to different stores that had union issues, and guys or women, men or women, but it was mostly the guys that, you know, they didn't care. They already had 30 years in, and they didn't care about working hard.
Yeah.
And they were taking time away from somebody that didn't want to work hard, and so they would send me in, and I'd be that guy that would push them, you know.
I think it's interesting, although it was kind of bucking the system of how a union employee works, that you were identified as somebody that was hardworking, willing to go the extra mile, and they utilized your skills to go to other stores to employ those tactics to get people to work a little bit harder or have a little bit more sense of pride in what they were doing.
Yeah, that I think was the biggest thing, is if you see somebody working hard, most of the time you're going to pick it up.
Yeah.
You're going to pick up the pace. So, you know, I was sent around to set an example because I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And if you looked at the track that I was on, other people could do the same thing at Stater Brothers.
Yeah.
You know, we were independently owned. There weren't politics. I mean, there wasn't any politics at all.
Yeah.
That was the great thing about working for Stater Brothers. You worked hard. You did what you're supposed to do. If you didn't, you got slapped, but not slapped, just literally, not physically. But, you know, I mean, you just worked really hard.
Yeah. So by most people's definition, it seems like you had a successful career at Stater Brothers, working your way through the ranks, you know, being a part of the union, but really focusing on working hard. Ultimately, you were faced with the decision to stick around or move on. What happened there?
I did. At some point, I took a look at myself and saw myself as this person that had been working for the union for 30 years. And I didn't know if that was everything that I could have been. Mm-hmm. So I always wanted to go to school. But I didn't want to practice just a regular trade or go to college or something like that. So I wanted to do something. And I always I was a creative guy. I always dressed differently than everybody else. Mm-hmm. And I like to think myself as a trendsetter. I mean, I was wearing seersucker pants and topsiders before and no socks before anybody, I think. You know, but people thought I was weird, but I just thought that was cool. So I went to design school. I left Stater Brothers and decided I would go to school for fashion design, which, again, comes with its own politics and things like that. So I found out quickly that school was full of politics. It was bureaucracy and exactly the things that I was against. I was really a black and white guy. You work hard, you do the right things, and you should be rewarded. And at school, it wasn't necessarily that way, especially a school like that.
Yeah, sure.
Where people are paying money. So since they're paying money, if they don't do something, then the expectation is, well, I'm paying, so you're going to do whatever I want you to do anyways, because I'm paying your salary.
Yeah.
And I was absolutely against that.
Yeah.
So I left there and went back to work in the supermarket business, working for Young's Distribution Company, which was a distributor of gourmet foods. They distribute alcohol or liquor.
Yeah, big company here in California.
Huge company, great family. But I got a job working at the distributor, and then I was just stocking shelves. I was running around stocking shelves, and vice president of Safeway. I was stocking Safeway shelves.
My guess is you weren't just stocking shelves. You were probably doing a great job hustling.
Yeah. I mean, well, I figured out early if I ran and followed the trucks, I can get my job done and have an extra day free to go surfing.
Okay, so explain that to me. If you ran and what does that mean?
So what would happen is the trucks would go to the stores in the evening and they would drop the load off.
Yeah.
Like whatever. So Young's did all the gourmet food.
Okay.
Any gourmet food that you walked in the store at the time was brought in by Young's, and it was awesome. I mean, because we got the best cookies and the best jams and all kinds of cool stuff. It was a great company to work for. But the trucks would drop let's say they would drop the load or the product or stock on a Monday, and the merchandisers, which I was, we would follow it on Tuesday morning, and we would put it up.
Okay.
what I did was I woke up early. I mean, I went to work on Monday night because the stores were all open. Guys were throwing stock during the night, and I knew what the truck routes were, and so I got there after the truck dropped on Monday.
Got it.
And I started throwing the stock, so I was always a day ahead. And so I was never behind. I was never rushed. I was never panicked. So I was always ahead of the truck.
You innovated your hard work.
I
mean, literally.
Well, I mean, it gave me the afternoons to go surfing, which I know you're an avid surfer at the time. That's what I did. I spent my time on the beach, and then I had Fridays. And if I missed it, if I wanted to sleep in or do whatever, I was still always ahead, and I worked on Friday.
I would say that you had your goals in mind, surfing, and you found out a way to get your job done by getting up early and hustling through the night so you can go out and enjoy it.
Yeah. And then it gave me the extra time, and I met a lot of people in the stores, and, I helped them when they needed their stock thrown, or if they needed some help, I was there because I didn't have anything else to do. I mean, it was just fun. I mean, I just like to work.
Yeah.
I'm just one of those guys. If I'm busy, I'm happy. If I'm not busy, I feel like I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah. So there you were, chasing trucks around, getting your store set up early, and working for Young's. Was that where you stuck around for a long time, or what came out of that?
I did. I worked for Young's for a couple of years, and I was having a good time. And now, when I look back, I was having a really good time. Maybe I should never have stopped doing what I was doing, but I got to know a lot of the store managers and the DMs and things like that. And one day, I'm throwing stock, and an executive at the time when Safeway was still here, it was Safeway and Pavilions, and I was doing Pavilions. Mm-hmm. They came by and said, "Hey, I think you should be a food broker." And I said, "What in the world is a food broker?"
Yeah.
And they said, "We know a company you should go work for." They don't do specialty foods. They do like mainline stuff like dog food and paper and you name it, the stuff that's on the shelves, the regular food that people eat, not the gourmet food.
Yeah.
Go work for them. They're really important to us, and we think that you do a good job there, and I think that you would grow there. So I went and I interviewed for the job, and I got the job, and I went back to Young's, and I told the gentleman that I was leaving. Mm-hmm. And he said, "Hey, we'll give you a raise. Why would you just leave?" And I said, "Look, I'd worked for them almost for 2 years, and I asked for raises, and I never got any raises. And I said, if I have to quit in order to get a raise, then you're not giving me a raise for the things that I was doing.
Yeah.
You're just giving me a raise because you want to keep me." And so that's not really the way I want to stay here.
Sure.
I want to see the value of what I can bring. And so, I said, I'm not going over for a lot of extra money, but I'm going over to learn another part of the industry. Mm-hmm. So went to work for Bateman Brokerage, which is a family-owned brokerage company. Great company.
Let me ask you something real quick, though. It takes a lot of strength to leave your comfort zone, Young's, and especially since they were willing to match your new offer. What is it that you possess internally that you made a statement like you did, like, you're just giving me a raise to stick around now, and that probably doesn't sit well. But it still takes that big step of faith to go to the next company.
Well, it goes back to you, Jim. You just have to say yes. I mean, if you want to grow in life, you have to make those steps. You have to challenge yourself. Mm-hmm. I just felt like at that point I was where I was. I've learned everything I possibly could. I got to know the inner workings of the company, the inner workings of the distributor side, and a bunch of stores, a bunch of managers and DMs and things like that. And it was becoming too easy.
Yeah.
It really was. It was like, okay, this is it. This is great, but is this what I'm going to do?
Yeah.
For the rest of my life?
Yeah, sure.
And at Young's, I didn't see that progressive path, so I took the job with the brokerage company, which the VP at Safeway said, "Look, this is a step up. Yeah. You're going to go from here, then you're going to become an account executive, and then you're going to be calling on the headquarters, and this is where I see you going."
Yeah. So what was that like? You're in a new world now.
Yeah.
Doing a brokerage thing.
Doing a brokerage thing. It was awesome. I mean, it was different. was new. I mean, I still call on a lot of the same people, but they put a bag in my hand and I became a salesman and went out to call on stores.